Chapter 2. Teppel guided Pera and Timmet into a shelter. It was one of their refuges designed for when one of their numerous volcanoes erupted. The metal the shelter was constructed from could withstand extreme temperatures. Most Lutians had logically deduced it may keep them safe from Dalek firepower. The shelter was dark, lit only by the green glow of the Lutians' bioluminescent bodies. Teppel looked around him. The shelter was crammed full of scared Lutians. Teppel returned to Pera and tried to smile reassuringly. She didn't return his smile and held Timmet, who was shaking. They sat down on the cool metal floor solemnly. A nearby Lutian whispered, "Did you see what happened to that senator?" "Yes, those metal things just shot him down without mercy," another Lutian replied. "Why are they doing this? Ours is a peaceful planet." "I overheard them talking to their leader. He said they were after a device," Teppel interjected gravely. "Stay out of it, Teppel," Pera berated him. "This is too big for us." "What do you mean, he?" "Their leader wasn't like them. He looked like a human, albeit modified. Genetic tampering, maybe? I've heard stories from Grat about the things humans do to themselves." Teppel looked back to the blank expressions from the other Lutians. "Never mind." "That device," one of the other Lutians said quietly. "You don't think it's what came down in that meteor strike last week, do you?" "What are you talking about?" Teppel asked curiously. The other Lutian looked around conspiratorially. "Last week, over in Forest 141, some debris came down from space. Just meteors, I heard. Took down some trees. The government cordoned the area off for a couple of days. All hush-hush. Then they left. I had a snoop around afterwards, but apart from some small craters, there was nothing there. But maybe something did come down." "Something these Dalek things are after," Teppel pondered. He considered to himself that if these Daleks were here for a purpose, the quicker they found said device, the quicker they would leave, and the better off Lutios would be. Teppel whispered to Pera, "I have to go." Pera's eyes widened. "Go? No, you must stay. It is safe here," she pleaded. "No one's safe here, not while those Daleks are here. I'm going to go to Forest 141. If I can find what they're after, and give it to them, then they'll leave." "You don't know that," Pera pleaded. "No," Teppel admitted, "but I know I'll go crazy just waiting here like this." "There's no talking you out of this, is there?" "No." Pera sighed and put a hand on Teppel's arm. "Then be careful." She smiled wryly. Timmet looked at him wide-eyed, in equal parts fear and admiration. To Timmet, Teppel looked like a brave hero from a story, going to single-handedly fight an evil empire, when in his heart, Teppel felt like anything but. Teppel stood with determination and stumbled over the other Lutians, who looked at him with similar eyes to young Timmet. Teppel reached the hatch, and another Lutian was looking through a small viewport. "Anything out there?" Teppel asked. The other Lutian at the door turned to him cautiously. His eyes were grave as he said, "Take a look." He moved aside and let Teppel peer through. Teppel gasped as he looked out at the field ahead. The grass was a deep vermilion, and gliding across its surface, trampling the occasional flower, was a Dalek. It was the same purple shade. Its eye stalk was surveying the area. "It's right outside," whispered Teppel. He watched the Dalek, who had some sort of gyroscope attachment on its longer arm. It had a needle on it which twitched up and down. The Dalek's eye stalk turned slowly, and stopped in the direction of the shelter. Teppel ducked down swiftly, closing his eyes tightly in fear. "What is it?" the older Lutian asked. Teppel replied, "It was looking right at me. It knows we're here." He stood slowly and resumed his surveillance. The Dalek was leaving, trundling away into the distance. "It's leaving. But where is it going?" "None of our concern, lad." "That's where you're wrong. It concerns the lives of everyone on this planet. Open the door. I'm leaving," Teppel said sternly. "You're sure?" The old man looked at him as if surprised at this young person's courage. Teppel nodded stubbornly. The older Lutian shrugged and turned the key. The door slowly opened, and Teppel ventured outside. The Dalek had indeed noticed the shelter. The Dalek had logged the information and decided it was of no immediate concern. The only thing that mattered was accomplishing the mission. This it would do with maximum efficiency. The Dalek had a name: Trip. Many did not realize that Daleks had names. Usually, those who meet them in battle are dead before they have the chance to find much out about them, other than their effectiveness in battle. Trip was analyzing the terrain of this strange planet. It was similar to other worlds it had surveyed, but different in certain ways, namely, the colors. Daleks didn't generally find color very interesting, but nonetheless, Trip noted it in his positronic log. The perceptor device attached to the Dalek's arm was attuned to a certain type of energy wave, a wave Trip had detected and followed like a sniffer dog. General Ryuk was not like a Dalek commander. General Ryuk was not a Dalek. He recognized that the Daleks under his command had strengths and weaknesses of their own. While the Golden Emperor sat in his spiderweb of control, preferred his Daleks obedient and drone-like, with few exceptions, Ryuk allowed his Daleks freedom to explore their own strengths and strategies. For example, when they had landed on Lutios, Ryuk had taken a detachment to the impact site, a forest area. He had left a second detachment at the ship to defend it. Trip, however, explained that the intruder that had stolen the memory device from Ziragalan had been using experimental technology. It had a telltale energy signature, chiefly a light-resistant wave. This anti-light wave rendered the wearer invisible to most spectrums of light, including infrared. Ryuk had allowed Trip to scan the planet for traces, and he was doing so now. He traversed the Lutian cities, which were silent and empty. Suddenly, Trip stopped. Statistically, humanoid lifeforms fled from conflict. Military forces would usually attempt resistance, which was futile. But this world was pacifistic, a word a Dalek could barely comprehend, and as such had no military. So logically, the cities were empty, its occupants having fled to whatever safe havens they had in place. This made sense. However, that did not explain one small surprising fact. Trip's domed head rotated 180 degrees. Someone was following him. Over in the lush wilderness of Forest 141, Ryuk and 4 Daleks were conducting an investigation of their own. Ryuk's right-hand Dalek, Lex, was analysing the tall trees. There were scratches and gaps in their trunks, and fallen trees around, scattered.
Damage from falling debris in this area indicates this is where the intruder landed,
Lex stated. Ryuk knelt down and placed a hand on the ground. He could sense that what they sought had been here, but no longer was. The human was clever to mask his landing in a meteor shower. It seems to cover a large area. He could easily have slunk out without the natives discovering him, he said, half to himself and half to Lex. Another Dalek, the first that had departed the spaceship, Snidge, was watching Ryuk with interest. The humanoid general was unique, part Dalek, part human, with who knows what else chucked into his DNA for good measure. A Dalek thinks logically, but Ryuk was an instinctual beast. Snidge couldn't help a wave of revulsion at the sight of his general. Whilst there was undoubtedly Dalek stock in him, he bore too much of a resemblance to a humanoid for Snidge's liking. It felt unnatural to take orders from a being that, for all intents and purposes, was inferior.
We must track the intruder's movements,
Lex said flatly. Ryuk nodded. Trip had a hunch about how the intruder eluded us, he replied. Experimental technology, possibly made using Spyridon science, anti-light waves, invisibility. The Thalblighted human just walked right in and we had no idea. Clever. Ryuk placed a hand to his ear, engaging his connection to the Dalek communications net. Trip, report. With barely a pause, Trip's high-pitched voice responded.
The light wave trails lead through the city, and I have a prisoner.